Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome back to From the Depths Battleship Diary, where we're continuing with discussing the ongoing construction and design and plans for the Starslung Mark III, which will probably not be called the Mark III, it'll be called something else entirely. Name suggestions are welcome as long as it's some variation of slung, which is Afrikaans or Dutch for snake. So, last time we looked at, like, the main... Actually, let's load this up and I'll show you. So, we looked at the main guns, main cram, main forward APS, the secondary lasers. I did actually test them in 1Q and 0Q. Actually, no, they are 0Q. That is the default. I tested them in, like, 1Q formation. That didn't work as well. With flat cram secondaries. We tested mortars and... the Seawers that is going to have. But we've got the ongoing problem of if this thing is going to be looking like previous iterations of the Starslung, it is going to, and this is where I can show you on the Stali 2. Let's go. Where is it? Where have I put you, darling? No, not that. No. Oh no, everything's going wrong. Alright, so. Here you see that if this thing ends up, and it may or may not end up like the Stali 2, there's a lot of deck space at both ends because she's pointy at both ends. So what do you fill that with? Actually, that's not as much as I remembered. My canoe making has clearly got more thoughts. But anyway, so there's a bunch of deck space left over after the main guns and the superstructure, such as it is. And etc, etc. So what do you put on there? So, we've had the flat crams, we've had the mortars, and this little fortress right here, we're testing flat APS. And what I mean by that is that the bit above deck of these things is only 1 meter tall. So, it allows the main guns and others, like other stuff to fire over them quite nicely. And it means they can fire over and past each other pretty well. So... versatile in that sense. However, and I'm just going to remove all the deco that I've done here. Remove all that. This is what's above deck, and you'll notice this is very poorly armored. It's relying on the fact that these guns are very, very flat, so the deck is roughly here. So it's only 1 meter above deck. It's relying on the fact that that is a very small target, and there's a lot of these guns. So individually, these turrets are more expensive than the mortars and crams that are the same size. So 20,850 materials is a bit much for a secondary or tertiary gun. But these things are kind of versatile. So this is the shell I've ended up going with. It's a pure AP because I was mucking around with all kinds of things like frag and AP heat and AP frag and just all that kind of stuff. And this seems to do the trick generally. So this will handle most things. Let's spawn in a few planes. Where is a plane? Let's spawn in a whole bunch of planes. Spawn in a Hake squadron. This generally does the trick. So I really should talk about what these guns actually are. So they actually dish out a fair amount of hurt. Certainly against anything fragile, it's they don't have great elevation because they need to be exactly 1 meter tall. But yeah, also not perfect against so right here you can see that they can fire over each other because they're really short. Very nice. Fail-safes have needed to be tweaked for the exact reason. Anything that isn't straight over the top of them. Yep, so they can wing planes quite nicely. Bearing in mind that this thing is going to have 2-axis lasers that is going to do a very nice job of just finishing stuff off like this. So let's actually get into the nitty-gritty of these guys. So, looking at the innards, not the best Tetris work I've ever done. Belt-fed autoloaders arranged in a circle like this, and this is not ideal because the cooling limit isn't quite enough to catch up for the autoloader limit, so not very efficient APS really, because they could be firing a lot faster than they are. But yeah, that might be a good reason not to use these in the end. I could manage to finagle some more coolers in here somehow, but I'm already kind of strapped for room, and it's at that awkward point where if I remove even one autoloader, like you know, it tips too far the other way. It's got too much cooling, and like not enough autoloaders to do stuff. So I'm in two minds about this, and it's also super cavitation, so these things can make a mess of submarines. And this arrangement, I should mention, is instrumental. It's so that if it's broadside one way or the other, they can all fire on target. A neat little experiment, and one that I might not use for this build, but I might use in the future. Could be kind of handy. Let's shoot a Typhoon, so you can see... Oh, I should show you what the shell is like. So that is a 120mm shell. It does 40 AP, so it does full damage to metal, 811 kinetic damage, so it can't take out a metal beam in one shot, but it fires fast enough, just fast enough, again, not the full 202.8 RPM, it fires fast enough so that isn't really a problem. Also, there's lots of them. So, let's see, the damage being done is already spiking considerably, and they're super cav because, remember, I want to have minimal torpedoes on this battleship. In fact, I only want to use torpedoes if I absolutely have to, because it's got multiple super cavitation APS on it. I'm just relying on that instead, because it's a bit more versatile, and actually a bit cheaper. Which is saying something, because APS is many things, cheap is not one of them. It's just, missiles are even less cheap. Or more expensive, depending on how you want to phrase it. Not super good accuracy, but that's mostly because of the fortresses, of how the fortress is kind of set up. And, yeah, once it's got its eye in, it's melting blocks off nice and steady. And as you can see, all of them are firing in broadside, and it'll only be a problem if it moves either to, well, in this case, to our left or right, because that is forward for us. So, yeah, so let's have another look at the Typhoon. It's not doing very well. Great anti-submarine thing. This is the one thing that submarines pretty much have no defense against. Fast-moving supercavitation APS is very hard to counter, especially if you're stuck underwater like this, because you can't move very fast. It takes a huge amount of effort to move fast. And, yeah, it's like you can have shields, I guess, but shields are never really a guaranteed thing. And yeah, so, like, yeah, this kind of gun is great for submarine killing, I think. Like, never leave home without them, I guess. Okay, so that's that. That's one possibility. And let's move on to other possibilities. Let's go... Where are we again? Okay, turret arrangements, Star Mark 3 plane. Lots of things happening in here. So here's the other idea, which is a similar idea, but it's possibly a bit more sensible. And you can tell already that this is much cheaper in terms of material cost than the other thing. This is a similar idea. So these are the 94mm simple weapons. So the 3.7-inch guns. Supercavitation base, armor-piercing head and heat. So almost full damage to metal. And they've got a little bit of a heat stream on them. And these things are so much cheaper than those little things. Way more compact. We can have lots of them. And this kind of arrangement here is what I kind of stumbled on, because I thought, like, okay, I want as many of them to be able to shoot, either to port or starboard as possible. But, you know, like, how do you arrange that? This is something like it. So, the Starslang 3, the Starly 3, I guess I could just call it, is probably going to sit very low in the water. And I say that just because all my designs tend to sit low in the water. It seems to be an unfortunate habit of mine. So hopefully these guys can depress enough to shoot things dead. And so this shell, by the way, was a few minutes of fumbling around and experimenting. I tried pure kinetics, I tried other stuff, but these things seem to do the trick. Similar to, let's spawn in a Hake Squadron again. These guys have much better elevation, very nice volume efficient, and because of those heat shells, if they hit something, they tend to, you know, reach deep inside it a lot more than other things do. And a little bit of HE damage as well. And you'll notice Yeah, they can all... Also, they also have 1 meter of clearance above deck, which means they're nice and sunken in, which is very nice. And they're making a bit of a mess of these planes. Not a perfect job, but remember, we've got lasers and other weapons in order to take up that slack. Also, I need to design a time fuse flak APS Seawiz, because people correctly pointed out to me that small missile swarms are going to be a real headache if I don't have one of those or something similar. Also, I just like the deco work in here. It's very simple. It's just little slopes here and there, nice rounded thing. So I think you can just swap the deck in these, and it's does very nicely, really. Yep, and there's one thing disintegrated. They don't track very quickly, but honestly, they don't need to. We have big lasers for that. These are kind of backups. So at the moment, this is what I feel I'm going to use, just to fill up the deck space and have lots of firepower, willy-nilly here, there, and everywhere. Bearing in mind that... what's it? It's not bearing in mind. What am I saying? I'm keeping distracted. Okay, I'm distracted now. Focus. Also, these things are just 1 block each, so they won't add ridiculously to the block count, unlike a whole swathe of secondary APS guns. And it means that the deck space underneath them will be free for other things. So I might stick LAMS in there, I might stick... not ring shields, because ring shields kind of suck, to be honest. And yeah, so, but this is so far the best option, unless I think of something else, or unless you, the person watching, can think of a better idea. So yeah, there's that. So this is probably what we're going to fill that flat space with. I do just like looking at this. Like, here's the thing. This just makes me happy. In fact, screenshot. That's how happy it makes me. Alright, so moving right along, just earlier, thinking, I might not have enough material for this very video, I did some LAMS testing. So thankfully, once you get the hang of lasers, LAMS are fairly quick to knock out, and this is something I want to come up to. This is quite large, because this is going to be a big ship. It's going to be kind of endgame material, going up against things that are over 1 million materials, substantially, and I do want it to be able to solo the Megalodon, and so there's requirements for that. So I did some mucking about. These LAMS nodes are probably not going to be in the arrangement that they will be on the final craft. This kind of wall here is just to give you a sense of the scale, because this is how tall the thing is going to be. So I actually used one of the turrets I made earlier to measure this. So this is roughly how much space we've got in the hull, and hopefully, like, we can figure something out regarding squeezing everything to where it's supposed to be. So this is a big honking LAMS. Nothing amazing. It's 0Q because I was experimenting with 4Q lasers. The problem with 4Q lasers is that, especially when shooting down APS shells, which is really this thing's main job, because we've got Seawiz, and we are gonna have missile countermeasures and stuff like that. Missiles will probably be mostly taken care of, and cram shells can be dodged fairly, not fairly reliably, but somewhat reliably. But big APS shells are a particular problem, and especially railgun shells are a particular issue. So this is mainly what that is for, which means it does charge kind of quickly, perhaps too fast. In 20 seconds it'll be full. And it is 0Q because 0Q is energy efficient. It doesn't waste damage, it doesn't do overkill shots on stuff that doesn't have much health. And so the result is that this big honking LAM system can eat up a substantial amount of fire, and can in fact shut down completely certain weapon systems, like the main one on a Kobold. And I really hope I'm not proving it wrong now. So the Kobold has very big guns, 500mm railguns that in fact fill up at least half of its hull, and this LAM system can destroy them. The problem is that this eats up power like no one's business, and so you can see here, 500mm shell. It's not massive. It's probably mostly just gunpowder, but is it still a railgun? I'm sure it's a railgun, but yeah, it's a hollow point sabot, hollow point sabot. Yeah, it's like, it looks like that's non-stop just what it fires. Because these shells tend to be hard to shoot down with LAMS because they're pure kinetic, so they have health, lots of health, and also they're very fast. But this LAMS system, at the very least on a stationary fortress, can zap them down relatively easily. In case you're wondering what the LAMS nodes are set to, I tend to reduce them to about 250 meters range, and I make them black, and I have them fire within smoke, because you don't want to accidentally smoke your own craft if a laser is shooting at you and then accidentally turn off all your own LAMS nodes, because that's bad. So yeah, this thing is very big, very power hungry. I'm not sure if this arrangement is going to be the final version. As per usual, this is all work in progress. I might need to shuffle some things around. I need to reduce the length or the width of this. Probably definitely going to need to reduce the length or width of this. And you might be wondering why there's a bunch of rubber here. So, I remember just in the nick of time that laser components, at least in alpha test, which I'm building this thing in, they are vulnerable to EMP. So, if you go, where is it? EMP damage reduction? Where is it? Alright, so it's in particular, it's the pumps. So, the pumps are vulnerable to EMP 40%, and they don't reduce EMP damage at all. But rubber is, in case you're wondering, if you're stuck in alpha test with all your craft getting AI dead non-stop, rubber is the new hotness when it comes to EMP prevention, because per meter it reduces an EMP surge by 30% plus 60, so really helps to dampen EMP surges. So I guess in this case, pretty much the LAM system, any laser systems we have, except I guess on the weapons, because whoopsie daisy, might actually surround them with rubber. Now think about it, the turrets themselves. But definitely going to surround the AI and laser the LAMS compartments with rubber, because that seems to be a great help. And more on that later to tell you how I know that. So this thing can shut down a kobold fairly well, which to be fair, the kobold is probably going to end up being a lot cheaper than the entire craft, because this is going to be a beast. It's going to be pretty damn big. But it can also kind of shut down some other things. So it can just eat the fire off of Bulwark quite well, which is kind of difficult actually, because the Bulwark has nice big AP crams with a lot of health. So there's a big volley of AP crams. That's usually kind of hard to stop just with LAMS these days, but in this particular case, this LAMS is big enough and ugly enough to not give a damn. In case you're wondering about the ratio here, it's about 3 meters of pumps to 1 meter of 3x3 storage. So that tends to get you a nice decent ratio of storage to pumping power, and you can just vaporize entire volleys of the Bulwark, no problemo. And that's not the only thing it can do. It can also nullify most of the fire of a stronghold, with the exception of the huge missiles it fires, because of course it does. Freaking huge missiles. And this is where testing systems of your ship in isolation is really handy, because, well, that was a giant cram volley that just got eaten alive just by these LAMS. This is where that kind of comes in handy, because you can see ahead of time what you need. Like, I need a lot of engines on this puppy. Oh boy. Might actually need to start using steam engines. And there's one huge missile we managed to take out. Or two, actually. Oh yeah, I remember. I tested this against the stronghold earlier when it wasn't quite as big. Damn, that's big LAMS. So yeah, very strong LAMS. And it can actually... it's not foolproof, but it can also... it can't catch all the shells that come off of Megalodon, but it can catch a few of them, which is very convenient. So, not sure if you could see that. Let's see here. Yeah, so it caught most of them, and that's a big deal, because those shells hurt like hell. And also, in this particular case, it's very handy that this fortress is out of the water, because the Megalodon likes to aim below the waterline, and unfortunately it can't do that forever. It does run out of juice. But just stopping that initial volley can mean the difference between a turret getting disabled or not, so that's probably pretty good. And then you get that sporadic fire, and then the thing, yep, so that's another volley that got mostly eaten. Very nice, very nice. I haven't tested this against the BBS 5th season, by the way. For those of you who don't know, that thing has really scary railguns, and we're going to be talking about that more in a hot second. In fact, we're going to be talking about that right now. So, armor. Armor, 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 armor. Armor. Where are you? There you are. So, this is the turret of the aforementioned BBS 5th season. Ridiculously big quadruple railguns and 2 turrets. And this particular weapon is influencing the way I'm designing the Stalsung Mark III, the Stali 3, quite a bit. Because this is the kind of stuff that makes a complete mockery of most kinds of armor. So, let me show you the shell. This is just one kind of shell. The other kind just replaced all the HE with the EMP, because as it turns out, AP EMP is ridiculously strong, and that's a different kettle of fish altogether. So, what do we got here? We've got a very gunpowder heavy 433mm shell with a huge railgun draw, over 52,000. The end result is 33,719 kinetic damage, with an expected armor PS of 55.9, so this does almost full damage to heavy armor, and it's ridiculously strong, and it's got 8 of those. Technically 4 with HE, and the other 4 are AP EMP, which are just as bad, if not worse, and stopping it is really difficult, because it goes straight through 19 layers of metal, and you can only stop it with pure metal about 20 meters, and even then, the final layer is pretty heavily damaged. So, what do? Well, as it turns out, I have been testing ways to deal with this, and it turns out this is where ERA, that formerly much maligned block, comes into its own, because this has wonderful properties. So, yeah, so the ERA, as it turns out, does wonderful things against very dangerous shells. So it triggers explosion of shells other than cram on contact. ERA dies after the triggering process is complete. So doesn't matter if it has fuses or not. It doesn't matter if it's APHE or just pure HE. This will trigger the explosion early, which means that when you start playing around with shells with like 55,000 KD, that is actually too strong for regular armor layers to stop. This is where ERA starts to get way more cost efficient than anything else. So the triggered shell has only 20% HE damage. That's important. It only has 20% hash thump damage, and like it makes any frag angles explode with a 180-degree angle, and shape charges and can't extend through it, etc., etc., etc. And yeah, and also it stops hash shock waves if it's triggered. And if the triggered shell has not exploded, i.e. it's a kinetic only shell, it will reduce kinetic damage by 2,500. Incidentally, something just occurred to me. I should check if this stops the EMP version, which thankfully is easy to swap out. If it doesn't, I'm gonna need to go back to the drawing board a little bit. So let's turn off repairs. This is live testing now, so please let this work. I'm gonna be so upset if it isn't. Oh, thank Christmas. Oh, mwah. So yeah, let's see here. Let's see that again. So you can see right there, ERA managed to stop it. In fact, that worked even better because surrounding ERA blocks are still intact. And it means that instead of going through 20 meters of metal, it only went through 2 layers of metal and a layer of alloy. So, oh lordy, okay. That's a huge relief. I was seriously worried for a second that that would not work. So let's swap this back to HE and can show you the difference. HE, click, 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 click. Boop, boop, boop. So, the HE does make a little bit more of a mess. So, you can see here though that yes, it's put holes through it. Yes, it's stopped there. Normally, what happens is that those shells would go all the way straight through and out the other side. So yeah, do watch my BBS 5th season weird and wonderful video for like a more thorough demonstration on how terrifying that thing is. not to plug myself, but I've shown that footage already, and I don't want to relive the nightmare. So in any case, so this is so far the draft plan for the Stahlslang Mark III's armor. I'm not sure if it's going to be this thick, and in case you're wondering why it's 2 layers of metal, a layer of alloy, I do want this thing to float without the use of downward-facing props or anything like that, because that's always a risk. You want your ship to be able to float all by itself, so that if its engines get destroyed, it doesn't immediately sink, which is the problem if you rely on engine power to stay afloat. So, testing on a fortress is all very well, but you sometimes got to make a test ship. So, all I've literally changed recently with this particular test canoe. By the way, this is not going to be the hull of the Stali 3. It is not big enough. It is just a kind of a, I guess, a smaller scale test, just to see how well this multiple layers of ERA holds up to the BBS 5th season. In this particular case, this thing lasted without any other form of defenses. It's got no shields, it's got no LAMS. It doesn't even move that fast. Its top speed is like 21 meters per second, and it managed to last almost 7 minutes, which is not bad actually for something that is completely unarmed and also has no repair possibilities at all. So to give you an idea of the armor scheme of this thing, so it's the same actual armor scheme as what I showed you. So 2 layers of metal, a layer of alloy, a layer of ERA, and layer of metal, and then on most of the ship, like the actual thick parts, it's just that repeating pattern. So if we shrink all the blocks, over the more important parts of the ship, there's actually 3 layers of ERA. So over here, what we've got is the internal compartments also have a layer of ERA. ERA is kind of CPU heavy because it's just lots of single blocks, which is bad news for your CPU, and this is going to be especially bad news if I try and do this on a very large scale. I might have to tone down and tone back on the ERA in many cases. But on the plus side, because it's lots of little individual blocks, it basically, the kind of aim point selection, which aims for clusters of blocks, it means that enemy AI is going to be aiming for the armor, and it'll be aiming for patches of undamaged armor, which will be super, super handy. In my tests with this against the 5th season, it tended to be aiming here, there, and everywhere. So once it destroys the ERA block it's targeting, it then switches to a fresh patch. So very helpful. And what else can we say about this? So this is probably not going to be how the actual Stali 3 is going to be laid out, because it's got all these little internal props, lots and lots of them. It's got an internal rudder, actually. This is beautiful cheese. What's happening down here is in this wet space, is it's got this pivot rudder, and hold on. So, damn it. Okay. Nope, wrong. Anyway, so let's see here. Nope. Let's go there. So that thing works just fine, even though it's not exposed to the outside world, and it's clipping straight through blocks, and it doesn't care, so very handy. And this thing floats kind of well, because it's got a lot of alloy, and this thing, and these props have 8 meters of space in between them, which means they've got full clearance, which is very nice indeed. And what is it? Alright, so here is a rubber-wrapped, whatchamacallit, AI compartment. So there's not much in here. It's just basic AI stuff. It's got just the one AI. And this is something like what I think the AI compartment on the Stali 3 is going to be. It's going to be rubber wrapped in heavy armor. Reason being, I'm not sure which is better, to wrap heavy armor in rubber or wrap rubber in heavy armor. It might be cheaper to wrap the heavy armor in rubber, now I think about it, because rubber's a lot cheaper. But if the rubber gets shot off first, that could open a gap for EMP to seep through and destroy your AI early. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure how to test that, so that is a problem. But yeah, so let's make sure that is turned off, and let us I don't know, let's spawn in something else with... what is something with powerful, strong railguns? There's not much. I think AI, the Nita designs are actually kind of restrained in just, you know, what, like, spamming AP railguns. Apart from the Singularity. Ooh! Actually, no, let's not spawn into the Singularity because it has lasers, and that's not a fair test. Let's go here. We're in Wonderful. And 5th Season, Scarlet Dawn. And we'll just finish off this video with just some fun. So, hopefully this demonstrates that this thing can take a reasonable beating. We might get unlucky. So, let's show you here what happened. Do we have stuff going out the other side? Of course we do. But you also have stuff going in here. Oh, that was an EMP shell. Going in here, goes through about 3 layers of stuff, and then it stopped dead, which is very, very nice indeed, because you don't want stuff stopped dead. Also, I should mention that that ERA level, you kind of have to, if you're going to do this, you have to, especially to defend against giant kinetic shells, you have to extend it as far up into the deck as you can, and down lower. So you'll notice, wow, that's a giant EMP surge, that this ERA layer goes right down here. It goes right down into the wet space, because if you don't do that, what you get is you get those shells angled in such a way that they can kind of bypass the main hull, and that's no good. And you can see it's concentrating on one little spot there. That is one reason to use canoes for stuff, is that either end is expendable, which is very nice. Also, worth mentioning that those are not super cavitation shells, which means they do bounce off the waterline. So, in this particular case, having a very low-slung hull is a good idea. Probably is not going to be this low-slung, though, because even though low-slung, style-slung, hardy-har, that is a bilingual pun, therefore it is not allowed, because it is going to have turrets and stuff, kind of making a mess of things. And this is less than ideal, because now we are already into right the guts of it. That was probably an explosive shell that did that. Also, this is possibly not the best move to have just vertical blocks as part of the deck, because if they get destroyed, now you've got a 4-meter deep hole in your deck, and that's not good. That is, in fact, wrong and bad and not very nice. But you can see this is surviving okay. It's already down 2% health, but bear in mind, it's not that big, and it's a lot cheaper than the BBS 5th season. So this kind of armor scheme, or something very much like it, is probably going to be what we're rolling with. Except, those freaking mortars are almost impossible to stop, and this thing does not have the right deck armor for that. So, yeah, that is a problem. That is a horrible, horrible problem. But the main accomplishment of this thing is that it doesn't get AI deaded immediately, which is a good thing. Also, if you have a bunch of repair bots with this, ERA suddenly gets a lot more viable, because I believe... shell touches kinetic only, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember... Yeah, it doesn't say in the tooltip whether ERA is free to repair or not. It might just be cheaper to repair. I don't know. If you do know whether that's true or not, do let me know in the comments, because I'd like to know. Because it means that repair spam might actually be a legit strategy for once. Let's see, how are we doing here? How is this going? It's going pretty well, actually. Yeah, wow, those monster EMP shells, AP EMP, the fact that one little block of ERA can just stop them dead is so useful. And if you have a long broadsider like this, it means that it's not very likely that those guns will hit in exactly the same place over and over again. And remember, we gotta test something. Lots of live testing today. I want to see if that LAMS system I made can handle the BBS 5th season. And I'm spawning these in the wrong order, like a complete dummy. But it's okay. It's okay. We're planning stuff. So LAMS testing. My team, thank you very please. Just gonna be God mode, because why not? And away over here, let's just do this. And let's just, I don't know, spawn the 5th season over here. Over here, here, here. Here, 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 here. Here, here, here. Here, Great Talons, why not? Wasn't expecting to do a lot of testing here, but yeah, like, the 5th season is great to test against. It's not a perfect craft by any means, but it's quite good. So, let's go over here. Let's see here. Those little shells are way too small. Those LAMS are not going to touch it. Oh dear. Alright, so it zapped some of them. Not all of them. Okay, but it zapped some of them. And considering just how strong each of those individual shells are, oh my goodness, it zapped almost all of them. Those shells have a lot of health, I think. And, bearing in mind, it doesn't need to destroy them if it damages them enough so it doesn't, you know, penetrate all the way through the ship. That's already a good idea. So, also I should mention that one of the reasons I'm designing the LAMS ahead of time is because frequently... What the hell? Okay, this is what I really cannot stand about some of the things from the depths, is because those shells move so fast that they can phase through the entire ship. Look at that. That actually... Yeah, it's literally phasing through. I hate that. I really hate that, and it's almost impossible to fix, because it's just how the game engine works. You make me sad. I'm gonna blow you up with, I'm gonna blow you up with my cram cannons just to finish us off, because, like, look, you know, we're testing stuff for a battleship, and, like, you know, if we don't blow things up with the main guns every so often, and by every so often I mean every time we do a Battleship Diary, then what's even the point? Why are we here, you know? What are we doing with our lives? Okay, you can... Thank you. We're just going to shoot the 5th season with big guns because I can do that. 5th season is so fun. 5th season is so fun to shoot at. Not so much fun to get shot thereby. But that is the way the cookie crumbles. Cookie Monster wouldn't like that analogy because battleships and Sesame Street is supposed to be family friendly. Also, yeah, I added these. So this thing has shield protectors. Shock horror, me using shields. Because I thought, like, you know what, you might as well. You might as well. It could mean the difference between disabled turret or not. And I've tweaked the fuses on these. And ooh, should have mentioned. Oh, damn it, doesn't show. But yeah, I've tweaked the ratio of hardener pellets in there so there's less wasted kinetic damage. So, being able to, let's see what happened there. Yep, so that turret is, less effective than it used to be. You're not the only one who can, do ridiculous overpens, 5th season. I can do that stuff too. You can see there, those shields are even catching the odd one. They're only strength 5, because strength 10 feels very expensive and ridiculous. Thank goodness for God mode. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to shoot you. And that would be bad. That would hurt my feelings. And bang. Whee! This never gets old. Yeah, so we've tweaked the shell so yes, it can reach straight into the middle of a big turret like this and just, you know, zap it off completely. Oh, yeah, whoops. Oh, so EMP surges like this is why emergency ejection defuse and ejectors is a good idea, even for very well defended guns. So that's the second volley disables a big turret. That's very nice. Let's see if you can get the AI next. Man, I love these guns. One more volley, and I swear, and then the video can end. Them's the rules. So yeah, I think, yeah, I need to get into the habit more of just putting shield projectors just, you know, on, like, covering the face of the turret, if nothing else, because it's harder to make the armor really thick on them. I need to sneak some ERA in there. Oh, that looked important. What happened there? Oh, lots of engines and stuff. Oh, that was an AI compartment. Yeah, so this is just the magic of these guns. It's just they reach straight to the middle of things, and they blow them up. And I think that'll do. I could watch these things fire at targets all day, every day, but you know, you gotta call it at some point. Hello, mortars, you missed. But yeah, so that'll do for this part of. Oh my goodness, that is a giant ass muzzle flash. But yeah, so we figured out mostly what we want to put on the big flat parts of the deck. We have a LAMS, which is ridiculously overpowered. We've stuck shields on our main guns. And we've got the beginnings of a scheme for an armor scheme. Which is all very, very nice progress. And maybe next time we can actually get cracking on the hull. We might want to figure it out some nice missile interceptor turrets first. Please let that disable that gun. Oh, wait, it has. And then it disables it some more. So this is what we like to see. BBS 5th season is 87% health, and both turrets are offline. That's good news, and I gotta tell you, most faction craft wouldn't be able to handle this any better. In fact, they'd probably handle it worse. So, on that merry note, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon, or use your membership if you like. It really helps, and there's fun perks in it for you. Thank you to all my current supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths, Battleship Diary. Farewell.